Still, how can a plank like that just float?
That's easy to explain. According to the Kutta-Joukowski lift theorem, the control surface flow is balanced by the inverse kinetics of the...
Stop! I get it, okay? It just floats, and that's good enough for me.
Sonic the Hedgehog. If you've been living under a rock, let me just explain the image you're looking at. This is Sonic, a blue anthropomorphic hedgehog that is known for going really fast. Typically, a lot of his games consist of running, collecting rings, and platforming. Though today, I'm going to focus on one of its spin-off titles, Sonic Riders for the Nintendo GameCube. Released on February 21st of 2006, this game was released with some balanced reception. Media outlets everywhere were calling it subpar, giving it barely anything over a 5 on a 10-point system. Am I the only one who feels as though these scores may have been given to Sonic purely because it wasn't a traditional Sonic game? I always feel as though that's the case with spin-off games. Have to give it credit though, it came out a whole 9 months before Sonic 06 and is much more polished. So what has the speedy blue hedgehog gotten himself into this time? Well, the game starts with Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles looking for the Chaos Emeralds, for a reason they never seem to explain. Hopefully it's not to test another tornado, cause God knows that always bodes well for Tails. While on this extraordinary Easter egg hunt, however, Sonic and the gang run into a group that had just stolen the Chaos Emerald they were looking for. Naturally, Sonic makes a chase using one of the hoverboards the group drops, unfortunately getting his ass handed to him upon catching up to the leader. The very next morning, they ran out of budget FMV and decided to use in-engine gameplay to show the rest of the plot progression. Professor Robotnik, or Eggman if you must, appears on a giant monitor in what seems to be the middle of the first stage to inform the gang of an X-World Grand Prix, to see who is the best at riding extreme gear, stating that the entry fee is a Chaos Emerald? Well, that's poop to anyone who isn't an anthropomorphic animal that runs around causing chaos in what I presume to be Station Square. This contest can only hold 7 contestants. Really? Very coincidentally, however, Sonic realizes that the group that stole their Chaos Emerald has also entered the competition, leaving 4 slots to be open in the tournament. Without giving the tourney a second thought, Sonic decides it's a good idea to compete in this event and that no harm could potentially come from gathering all 7 of the Chaos Emeralds in one location. Good thinking, Sonic. Thus, our task is to win the X-World Grand Prix and foil Robotnik's evil plot. Now, there is an alternative storyline where you play the Babylon Rogues and you're trying to win the competition and get the treasure at the end. In this storyline, you play the character Jet, Wave, and Storm. These characters are there to reflect Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles. Though, I will admit, I really enjoy these characters, even if they sometimes try too hard to be funny.
I want you to sneak into Eggman's base and find out what he's hiding there. Make sure you look carefully.
You got it, boss.
Hey, before you go, bring something back or don't return at all.
Yes, sir.
Ah!
Aside from that, I wouldn't necessarily say the story is the game's strong point. Who could have thought that the narrative to a racing game isn't the most complex? I suppose it's time to get to the gameplay. That's always the fun part, right? Well, where to start? I guess I'll start by talking about the classes of the game and working my way through there. Sonic Riders had 3 classes that change up the gameplay in various ways. These classes are known as Speed, Flight, and Power. Speed allows you to grind on rails, Flight allows you to soar through the air, and Power allows you to punch through obstacles. These are all used in conjunction with the stages where you'll be using these abilities to open up new shortcuts which help out when you're in a race. Abusing your shortcuts is the most essential fundamental of this game. Imagine item boxes in Mario Kart. You wouldn't go an entire game without using at least one. I'm not going to lie to you though, some of these are a pain to get to. Typically they require the memorization of the map and or have a very small window of time in which you can actually make it. One of my biggest nitpicks with this game is the position of flight rings. So with a character like Tails, there is usually one flight shortcut you can take. That's fine, right? Well, as it turns out, some of these are nearly impossible to get to. Like some expect you to perform a trick into a flight ring. Doesn't sound that bad in theory, however in execution it is absolutely atrocious. Usually these require you to go out of the way to get into the ring, and if you miss, it basically puts you further behind the opposition because of the trick you just tried to perform. Or at least, they seem nearly impossible for me to perform. Besides taking and abusing shortcuts, there's also the boosts you can do. The boost does exactly what you think it'd do. It gives you a short burst of speed that allows you to catch up with other players when you're behind. If you happen to boost into another player, however, you do a sort of attack that stops the player in his tracks momentarily, as well as knocking some of the rings out of them. It should also be noted that this boost attack seems to get better with each level you achieve, allowing for longer stun periods. Oh right, I should probably talk about the hoverboards. That's probably necessary information. The hoverboard is the main form of vehicle you have. There's also things like Darkness and Eggman's motorcycle. Each vehicle has its own stats and special traits, so it's always nice to experiment with extreme gear. Alright, so can I just take a moment to say that Shadow's shoes are called Darkness. I know he's supposed to be the dark and edgy contrast in comparison to Sonic, but seriously? Might as well have called Sonic's extreme gear Swiftness while you're at it, Sega. Alright, so the main thing with this game and hoverboards is that the vehicles run off of air. Air allows you to continue using the board. Once the air in your board depletes, you're forced into a run, which is one of the worst positions you can be in. Running, it's drastically slower, oddly more floaty than being on the board, and turns are harder to make. So the question is, where can you replenish your air? Well, that's simple enough. Air is replenished by performing tricks, stopping at your local gasoline station for a pump, and or using your character's specific ability. Most stations also have a sort of QTE segment that recharges your air depending on how well you spin your left analog stick clockwise, though for the most part you're going to need to rely on how well you can perform tricks. Using your boost also takes up air, though if you manage to hit another player, some of your air replenishes as theirs depletes. So it's a nice double-edged blade if you decide to boost and can't quite get close enough to hit the other player. There's also a possibility that if you're going fast enough in a level, you're going to be leaving some air turbulence behind you. This turbulence can be used by other players to not only catch up to you, but to replenish air. In certain situations, this turbulence may also be used to jump to an elevated level of the track and gain access to shortcuts. Now, there is one thing I want to take note of because it is excruciatingly odd. Jumping. My logic with jumping in most games is that if you have any type of momentum and you jump, you should maintain that momentum while you jump, correct? I mean, Mario works off that very premise with every consecutive game. However, in this game, prepping a jump slows your board to a halt, though you need to do that to get to higher portions of the level. Most particularly in this stage, where it is basically necessary to charge a jump to get to this turbulence. Just look at how awkward this is. It's not the best. Though, that's basically all I have to say about the game. There's a capability to unlock more characters and to play up to 4-player split screen. Really fun stuff to play with friends if you want something other than Mario Kart. Sonic Riders is a fun game, and I highly recommend playing it. It's one of the games that made up countless hours of my childhood. I admit it has its flaws and is by no means a perfect game, though it is definitely one of the better racing games out there. It's a blast to play with friends or to do a casual playthrough by yourself. This is one of the few Sonic racing games I really recommend. But don't play the sequels. The sequels are dumb. You know who I like to play as in this game? Cream. That way when I win, I can say I creamed the opposition. I'll end the video now. But before I do, I want to ask you a question. Which would you like to see on my channel? Paper Mario or Kirby's Epic Yarn? Your vote will help me determine what video I make next. So go ahead and click on the game you want to vote on. And as always, if you like what you saw here and you would like to see more, feel free to hit that little subscribe button. You could also follow me on Facebook and Twitter, links down in the description.